And we're live. Welcome to the All Balls No Filter podcast, live from the cabin kitchen. I'm Zach. He's Brad.
Hello there.
And behind the scenes, we have a man that once saved a stranded cat that was stuck up a tree. It's Researcher Cal.
Researcher Cal is a man of the people, isn't he? And a man of the kittens.
He is indeed. How are you doing today, mate?
All right, mate. I'm all right. It's been nice having a couple of days away from the old full-time job, so feeling refreshed, feeling ready and raring to go. Yeah, how about yourself? You good?
Yeah, long weekend, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a bit of a long one on the old shandies, I think it was. That's what I'm putting it down to anyway. But other than that, it was fun. It was a weird weekend though with no football. I must admit that. But I had something else to kind of fill my fix. But we'll go into that a bit later on, mate. We'll go into that a bit later on. So, what we got in store for today?
So it's our first ever episode without any NFL. Although it's still happening. The train never stops, does it? But so we're gonna visit the whole season. We're gonna review the season. We're gonna have a look at what went well for teams, what didn't go so well for teams. Visit right the way back to the draft of last year and see how those guys got on. And then, of course, as always, we will have our All of the Balls. And a new segment today from Researcher Cal is lined up a nice one and quite a appropriately timed one. But I'm looking forward to it, just to sort of visit back and look at what was quite a weird but interesting season, really, for the NFL.
Yeah, it felt like one of them for me where the season just started and finished. I know it sounds really daft, but I can't really remember it being like it was over really quickly is what I'm trying to say. It just seemed to the opening weekend's here and now it's playoffs. The whole season in the middle just kind of disappeared to me, but it was an enjoyable season. I'm looking forward to kind of going back through it from the draft picks and the teams and have a bit of a review and giving our really professional and accurate research and views on the teams and clubs.
Very well educated analysis you're going to get in this episode, I think.
That's
absolutely nothing from Researcher Cal, because he knows nothing, as we've discovered over the last few weeks. Sorry, Researcher Cal, maybe an optimistic name there. I'm kidding. He does a lot of great work in the background, but of course we are not analysts. We do not pretend to be analysts, but I'm sure we'll try and get stuck in the best we can as we head back through the 2025 season, which is also something that I've found really difficult to get my head around, even still today. The fact that they call it 2025 season, even though it finishes in 26, and I don't know, it's a weird one.
Yeah, it's when trying to find out and trying to do research, and you type in the 2025, you always find yourself second guessing: is this the right season? I think while we're doing when we did our Super Bowl night, I did the Super Bowl quiz and I'm researching things. I'm like, 2025 MVP, but it's 2026 when he's awarded. Have I got the right one? Double checking 4 or 5 different outlets to find out which one, if I'm making sure it's right. But we got there in the end, and it's hopefully as accurate as it can be. So
hopefully,
sorry, go on, mate.
Go on. We're good. Let's go.
The latest is killing us again. Right, we're going to look into the draft picks to start off with, right? So we're going to have a look through the notable draft picks from this year, see where they were, where they ended up. Did they live up to expectation is the main one. If you're listening to this, we have got it all on screen now. We've got a few notable names up on screen now, but me and Brad are just going to go through and give our kind of views on these. I think we have to start at the top. And at pick 101, which would be Cam Ward. Now, again, personal view on things like this with these players. Did he live up to expectation? I'm going to say yes, but I think the team let him down.
Yeah, I mean, I'd fully agree. It's like a blessing and a curse, isn't it, as being that sort of first drafted quarterback, because you're going to a crap team, really, unless something weird has happened, that season's just had a really off year. You're going to a team that's not great, really. I think the Titans is probably an acceptable team to go to, because you've got those bad teams that are just bad for various reasons, whether it's like a poor GM or a poor head coach, or they're in a rebuild, for example. But then there's some teams like where it's just a bad organisation to go to. Like you always see the Browns up there, don't you? They've had the odd year where they're not, but you're just thinking, not the Browns, not the Browns, not the Browns. So like if I was a quarterback and I knew I was pretty much guaranteed to be going first overall, I don't think the Titans is a bad place to land. I think I agree with you, really. It was just poor coaching, I think, because you saw, didn't you? The second half of the season, he really started to show, and he had moments like he had a pass in each game where it's like, yeah, you can see the skills there, and obviously the skills there, but you can see it. But obviously, as he developed through the season and the coaching change midway through, like they started to pick up a little bit, and Cam Ward started to pick up. So I think it'll be an interesting one next year. You've got Dayball, who will be sort of running the offense there, which I don't know. Is he overrated? Is he not as a coach? I don't know. He had success at the Bills. He had very little success at the Giants. So was the Bills' success down to Josh Allen? Who knows? We'll see. But you'd like to think they've got some quality coaching around the team to maybe allow him to go on to season, season 2, and show that progression, hopefully, and make that leap.
Yeah, I liked him. I think he showed a lot of promise. I'm not going to lie. I think he was exciting. He had a lot of like off the cuff kind of plays within the offense, and that's a bad sign for the offense because they get they're allowing people to get through to him. He's got to make these off the cuff plays, but at the same time, it shows a bit like Caleb Williams kind of esque of the mobility and the accuracy at the same time while going through. Now, looking at his stats for the year, he's done 3,169 yards throughout the year. That's nearly 1,000 yards more than Jackson Dart, who was not a top 10 pick. I don't believe, and but was he was quite a high profile name on that. So it's nice. It's good to see, and you can see that kind of that potential there. Now, the issues with him is the turnovers that he had, and I think he's still learning the NFL game. And this goes back to what you said about if you pick 101 on your QB, you're starting. I think you could say that within any of the QBs in the top 32 picks. If you're picked as a QB in that top 32 picks, you should be long gone are the days of like Aaron Rodgers sitting underneath Brett Favre for however many years to learn the game. You are right. We're drafting you now straight out of college. You've got to learn. A lot of them have never called plays before. Like you've got to learn to play call, or not call plays. Sorry, like call plays in the huddle, shall I say? A lot of them have never read the plays out, especially when it's coming in through the in ears, and be able to read the defense at the same time, which they need to. It's hard to see. Look at Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are two prime examples of coming out of college, not really doing what they can do because I think the pressure just got to them. It was a bit too much to begin with, and a couple of years in the NFL, and you're a Super Bowl champion. So, I agree. I think the potential's there for him, but only time will tell with this year 2, for sure. Another big name within the draft was the dual threat man himself. Where's he going to play? Wide receiver. Where's he going to play? DB. What's he going to do? Mr. Travis Hunter was arguably one of the most exciting draft picks, in my opinion, coming out of the draft because of all that it was up there with we don't know what to expect because he's played so well in college in both sides of the ball. We don't know what to expect. I've heard and read that next year they're kind of focusing more as a wide receiver. Is that correct? No, more full-time cornerback. No. Sorry, thank you, research Cal.
Yeah.
Then wide receiver next year, which I can see because he had some good shutdown things, shutdown plays going on. But what were your view on Mr. Hunter this year?
I think he was a bit of a letdown, to be honest, if I'm just blunt. But I don't think that's necessarily a reflection on him as a player or him as an athlete. I think it kind of comes with the territory that if you're playing a bit of both, you're splitting your investment in that position. So, college is a very different game to the NFL. the offenses that they use are very different. The defensive coverages that they use are very different. I think what I read last year was that they would essentially, when he was at college, he was pretty much training wise more of a full-time cornerback, but then they would design specific plays as a wide receiver, which is where he knew that limited number of plays that he was involved in, basically, and they would execute in that way. And I think my gut probably says if you're going to capitalise on him in the NFL, I don't think that's a bad way to go. So I think focusing him more on cornerback is probably the right way to do it. And then you've got some designed set plays. And I think obviously some of those need to be like almost decoy plays as well. Oh, right, Travis is in. Let's double team him because it's a set play. Oh no, it's not going to him. That sort of stuff. If you've got the smarts about you, which obviously the NFL coaches do. But I think the promise is there, the potential's there. He's an athlete, obviously. You don't go second overall for no reason, and you don't have the success that he had at college for no reason. Obviously, he had the injury, which ruled him out for much of the season. But I think even in the early games when he was on, you could see there's something there again, but I just don't think it was quite. A play like that's going to take a couple of years, I think, to really be that big explosive player. I think.
I agree, and going back to him doing both sides of the ball at college and the plays that they designed for him, I had the same thing as well. But and a lot of the team meetings happen at the same time. So if the offense are having their offensive team meeting in the NFL and the defense are having their team meeting at the same time, it can't be in both. So it's hard for him to learn both sides of the ball. And there's no secret, no doubt about it, that this guy is a stud. And I genuinely think that whichever direction he takes full time, whether that is wide receiver or cornerback, he will be an all-star player in that position. I genuinely think he's a phenomenal athlete. But I agree with what he said last year, because he was splitting himself both ways. He had some breakout plays, some good shutdowns, and some decent catches, some decent yards. But I don't think he'll ever be the best player if he's playing both ways. I think he does need to. It's nice in college to do in college. The level in college, you can be a star and be levels above the people that you're playing against, so you can kind of get away with just jumping on for a couple of plays. If you've got 10 plays that are designed for you as a wide receiver, the NFL coach are going to pick up on this. Then they're going to turn around and go, well, it's one of 10 plays here, so we can just maneuver things about. So I think if they're smart with how they do it next year, the injury did hurt him, which is obviously because it's an injury, but the injury did hamper his playing ability on the field, putting him on the bench. It'd have been nice to see him finish out the year and see where he actually finished off. Only one touchdown probably kind of pushed him a bit more towards that cornerback role, but yeah, it's been one of them for me with him. I think he had to decide at the end of this year, and they push him towards the right direction in my personal opinion. Anyone stand out to you, mate, other than the top two? So we've gone through the top two. Any bigger ones for yourself that have kind of come out? We've got a big list aside, obviously, but
we have, yeah. And I think the ones for me, there's the big name. If we're thinking right back to the draft, I'm not necessarily thinking performance on field here, but the big name before this draft was Shedeur Sanders, wasn't it? And I think I'm sure we'll get to some of the other guys and stuff, but that whole scenario of where will he go, when will he go, who will he go to? It's probably one of the most odd draft scenarios that I've sort of experienced in a long time, and I don't know if that's because of his name. I don't know if it's because of how he portrays himself, or I don't know if it was because he was being coached by his dad, where he, at Colorado, and but that was just like a whole big drama, wasn't it? And then there's the whole issue of like he was kind of blacklisted, and it was intentional to not draft him, and then obviously he fell so far that a team basically had to do it. And ironically, I mentioned the Browns, that's where he ended up. But I don't know, like, I just think, at the time, what were your thoughts on like that whole scenario? Obviously, we know how the season panned out. We know what happened there. And, he had a mixed rookie season when he actually came in. I don't think he was atrocious. I don't think he was brilliant. He was fine, I guess. But the whole draft scenario around Shedeur, like, what was your thoughts, like, leading up to the draft and, like, immediately after the draft?
Oh, for me, I don't have many positive things to say about the guy personally. I think he's arrogant, and I think his arrogance is what let him down and got him knocked down so many picks and so many rounds. I think there were a rumor going around or a news article going around that the Ravens contacted him and said, we're going to draft you next. And he turned around and said, nah, I don't want to be behind Lamar Jackson. Understandable, because he wants to obviously get on the field and stuff, but at the same time, look, if an NFL team rings me, I don't give a shit who it is. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to go out there and try and fight for it. Looking at the season that Lamar had, if he'd have put a decent shift in at quarterback, there could have been talk of him potentially getting a couple of reps on that field if he was hurt, as what the backroom staff are saying about Lamar. So, but, if buts and maybes. The Shedeur thing for me more than anything else is, I think the moment the Browns took him, the Browns were going to play him. The Browns were done. The organisation had this name, had this media personality, regardless to what he'd done on that field. The moment he goes back on that field, he weren't getting dropped because of that media personality they had. It brought limelight to. It brought a personality again to. It was the Johnny Football, the Johnny Manziel vibe to the Browns again because of all this big name coming in, and yeah, obviously Baker Mayfield was as well, but I think there's just been a bit more because of Shedeur's family and his. I mean, he were a good QB at Colorado, but you take his family away from him and that media away from him, and he's a fifth round pick in my opinion. Like, he's not the best QB in the draft by a mile. I just think it was shown, and his media brought him to it, and evidently that's why he got into Pro Bowl, because of his media side of things.
It's an interesting one with the Browns, though, isn't it? Because, like, it's one of those weird situations where you couldn't necessarily win that situation. You couldn't necessarily lose. And I probably don't say this about the Browns very well ever, but I think the fact that they took him and where they took him, like, putting that aside, I think they kind of played it the best way they could in a way. They didn't start him. I think he was third string, wasn't it, to begin with? And then, if I remember rightly here, he ended up he ended up starting because obviously they played Dylan Gabriel, and then I'm sure obviously he was drafted two rounds prior, as researcher Carl's just chiming in with. So two rookies, they sitting behind Dylan Gabriel and behind, was it Flacco was starting at the time?
Yeah.
And obviously Flacco, they moved on, and that was the right thing to do. I think they started the season with the right guy and they moved him on, and they had to look at these two quarterbacks. I think that was the right move then for them. Obviously Gabriel picked up an injury, and then Shedeur was like, he was forced to start. And as I say, he didn't set the world on fire. He didn't have horrendous play all of the time. He wasn't great, but it wasn't like he was the worst quarterback to ever step on the field. But they kind of played it right, where they've been able to see a bit of the two. The only thing is now, I think with Dylan Gabriel fit, they're going to have that same media circus next season in the off season, because it's going to be right, who's starting, what's happening.
It's Shedeur starting. Dylan Gabriel's never stepping foot on that field for the Browns again, and they've killed his career, right? So he either needs to move on now to a team that needs a QB that might be looking to offload and get a cheap QB for the likes of Arizona, getting shot a Kyler, and just trying to maybe taking that cap go, or even someone, I know it sounds like Miami, if they get a shot of Tua and they've got that cap hit and they need a cheap QB, they've got a third round draft pick there going, because I can guarantee now they'll get him at dirt cheap to get him away so they can put the focus in on Shedeur. They don't want that media circus again. They don't want that who's starting. They want to be able to focus a team around a starting QB, and to make life a bit easier than having to have this hoo-ha where you got two young QBs. If it were Joe Flacco and Shedeur, then you can kind of back it with, they're going to go with younger guy, put some effort into him, but they've got two draft picks here, two young QBs here that are going to, arguably fighting for it, and they're just going to cause commotion when everyone knows the Browns are going to make the wrong decision, choose Sanders because he's the media guy.
Yeah, it's just a Browns situation to be in, isn't it? Like, it's definitely going to happen. I don't think they'll move on from Dylan Gabriel. I don't. I think it's just going to be a typical Browns media circus shambles of a preseason for them, and then they'll just do something really strange, like, I don't know, taking a free agent quarterback a week before the season and start them instead, because why wouldn't you Browns? So,
exactly.
Exactly.
Looking at some other big names within there, I just want to ask you a question here regarding a couple of the players. We're not really touched on them, but we can do within this. If you're going to choose a rookie from the last year's draft to build your kind of team around having seen what you've seen this year, and you had McMillan, you had Genty, and you had Cam Ward, who are you choosing and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You caught me with a curveball there, throwing Cam Ward in, because your quarterbacks are so vital.
Yeah,
I know. Like, I think if it was McMillan or Jonty, it would be McMillan. I think getting a big name wide receiver one is probably better and more important than having a big name running back number one. Although they both make a vital difference, but we know through longevity of careers, typically your receivers outlast your running backs, and equally, it's that QB wide receiver relationship that's so important. Because if you don't have that and you know you're hammering the ball from the running back, they're just going to stuff the run. And then if you don't have that connection with the receiver, then what are you going to do? So I think I'd have gone on them too. It's the Cam Ward thing that throws me, and I think quarterbacks are so volatile to see. I think if a wide receiver explodes in the first year, which McMillan did, I thought he was outstanding. I think he'll be a solid receiver for his whole career. But the quarterbacks are difficult to judge. I think it's probably one of the hardest positions to really sort of analyze and know what they're going to be when they come out of college into the NFL and how that converts. I think it's probably one of the hardest ones, really. My gut says Cam Ward. I think just because he's a quarterback and he's definitely shown he can do it to a point. But I think it's so important that you get the right coaches around a quarterback. I think, yeah. Same question to you then.
Yeah, it's a tough one because
Jonty
there's three
McMillan.
different positions.
Come on.
Yeah, three different positions there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I would go down the McMillan route personally. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Joe Flacco because he's a great quarterback, but he's not a young quarterback anymore. But look at what he did when he went to Cincinnati and he started moving the ball when Joe Burrow couldn't with behind the same offensive line. Okay, now I understand he still got hit and everything, but that's because he had two all-star receivers that he could guarantee throw that ball to under double, triple coverage, bring it down, make the yards going forward. You can find someone like a Baker Mayfield or a Sam Darnold. I'm going to keep bringing these two up because they are two prime examples of a round one QB year one sometimes isn't the one. Now, obviously, we ain't going into the specifics of Cam Ward. Is he right for your team type thing? And I'm not taking anything away from Cam Ward. I think he's a phenomenal talent coming out of college. But I think there's a lot more work in there when you can pick up players that just didn't fit an organisation that can work with your guy. Like, I think you take Marvin Harrison Jr., for instance, out of Arizona, you put him into a team with a decent QB at time, and he's going to be an all-star again. I think it's that fit. So for me, I'd like you say, find that wide receiver one, and the longevity of it, for me, it would be McMillan.
So who do you think, thinking about back to the draft, and I guess we'll look at the teams generally as we move through this app, but do you think there's a team, two questions actually, which team got the steal of the draft? So which team do you think got the best value, if you like, who picked the best value at what point? I'm not saying it has to be a late round pick or anything like that, but who got the best bang for the buck? And then which team do you think had like the best draft overall? Like who impressed you?
Oh, so for me, I've got one guy that is my like steal of the draft, and I just think in this position's hard to come by someone that makes an impact everywhere he goes, and that's Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren was a stud all year, solid. He blocked well. He caught the ball well. He was just nearly 1,000 yards receiving on a tight end on your rookie year. He's just great. And for me, I think he is that steal of the opening. I mean, you could go like a Cam Scatterbo, for instance, but like, I mean, he got injured. But for me, he's just like that. Boom. He made an impact all season. Who had the best draft? Oh, God. Now, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Who improved the most from the draft? Oh, God, you've caught me with one there. God,
the reason I ask, it's a bit of a loaded question. It's not loaded, right. But the only reason that I sort of linked those two questions for me is Kyle Manangai. Is that how I pronounce it? Kyle Manangai. So the Bears picked him up in, I think it was like round 6 or 7. I'm sure it's 7. Real late pick. And he was just, in fact, if my in-depth analysis and research tells me, he actually apparently led the rookie running backs in production from the line of scrimmage in terms of yards and impact, etc. I think he had 5 touchdowns. He had 700 plus yards, which, you know, we've got bigger stats than that.
It's the impact, though,
that value. Yeah, that value in the 7th pick. And I think the reason I sort of had those two questions sort of come to my mind was that I think the Bears had a really, really solid draft. And we talk about organizations that like perpetually sort of show dysfunction. Maybe not dysfunction, but they've not been a big name, have they, in donkeys of years. But I think, you know, they picked up Loveland, they picked up Luther Burden, they picked up Manangai. Like, they just had for me, a solid draft. And then that sort of reflected with picking up the right coach and a second-year quarterback. And then they had the success they did this year, probably ahead of schedule, as we spoke about in previous episodes. But I thought they were absolutely solid, generally.
So for me, my team would be, and it's a curveball on this one, a bit Giants, I think. For me, who had the best draft in terms of the players that came through, taking Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. In particular, to move forward, you've got 2 players there. If providing they can keep fit, and I think they've got the right coach now to go into next year, providing they can keep fit, keep healthy, and just stop making stupid decisions. There could be 2 decent players there to kind of base your team around. So with that being said, before I move on to like the teams and his view on the teams, final one for the draft itself. Which rookie then, in your opinion, will have the best year 2?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think in terms of sort of progress from year 1 to 2, like maybe, I don't know, it's so hard to say what the best year 2 would be as a player, but I think in terms of progress made, the leap that they make, I'm really quite excited. If we're, thinking big names, I'm quite looking forward to seeing Janty at Raiders. I think the Clint Kubiak hire is exciting. I think you saw the impact that Walker made at Seahawks, and I think if you've got the right coaching set up around him and you've got the right, the draft well again this year. And I think they're also going to have to rely on him a little bit more. Well, maybe not more, but odds on are they're going to take Mendoza first overall. So, what's the best way to set up a rookie quarterback for success is to have a running back that you can rely on and a run game that you can rely on. And I think having him there, he had a massive impact from the get go. Anyway, didn't he? Like he was 3 down back. The run game's been inconsistent for years, and he took that up a level. Was he the best running back in the NFL? No, he wasn't. Does he have the potential to be? I think he does. We won't even get into his stance. I'm not even going to entertain that conversation. 'Cause we all saw the comments and the memes about, oh, he's in this stance now and look what he's done. It's a load of crap. But I think he's got the potential to make a huge leap in year 2.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you there. It's a strong position to have if you've got a good running back, one that you can rely on going forward. For me, it's Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's just he's going to excel in year 2. I think he's going to be is exciting enough to excel. I think he has that potential to have that follow that footsteps of the Caleb Williams year 1 to year 2. And have that exciting year, and I think if it does, it will make the league and the season a lot more exciting to have with a lot more of these QBs in. So moving on to the teams now, mate, of what we saw this year, and talking purely from a fan point of view, we're taking the stats kind of out of it for the time being. Teams from start of the year, who do you think we're going to get to the Super Bowl? Who didn't live up to their expectations, and who surprised you more than anything else?
I think the big surprise for me, and I'll go out and say it from the get-go because I've given some hammer over the years, over the weeks we've been doing this. Sorry, I've said years instead of weeks about 3 times on this episode. The surprise to me was the Patriots. Like they, one of a few. I'd say the Patriots, the Hawks, and the Bears were probably the 3 for me that jumped out a lot more than I expected them to. I think there was always a bit of promise for the Bears. I think there was like a lot of expectation around the Ben Johnson thing jumping up and sort of elevating the team, if you like. But for me, the Patriots had a really solid season. They excelled what they were expected to do, and obviously reached the biggest game of the year. And what more can you ask from a team, really, at that point?
Well, I've just found our Instagram clip for next week. A Dolphins fan saying the Patriots up there. But yeah, it's I would agree, and on that, for me, the Kansas City Chiefs didn't live up to expectations from what they'd done in the past. I think they were one of the biggest letdowns for me watching like the year. They've always had this kind of like, oh, how many more years have they got left of this dynasty run that they're having? And it was always going to come to an end at some point, but I didn't think it would come to kind of as an abrupt. They just didn't seem to look like, in my opinion anyway, like they were getting going. Now, as a surprise team to who did well, the Bears. The Bears, for me, from start to finish all year. Obviously, they lost a few games to begin with, but like every year was just a every year. I've done you. I've just done a you. Every week was a surprise, is what I was trying to say. It was exciting to watch. Keep improving, and it were good. Now, don't get me wrong. The Patriots, I agree with you, were also ahead of schedule, was what we like to say. We're also good to kind of see them get going. But for me, the most improved team for the year was the Bears.
It'll be interesting to see where they go next season. Obviously, it'll be year 3 of a rookie quarterback, which is normally the year that you see the big leap. And for Ben Johnson, who came to the Bears with high expectations, but I think he sort of excelled them quite quickly, didn't he? And he took that offense to that next level. And obviously, like we've just said, they drafted really well and they executed well on the field. And Williams looked the real deal this season. He had some absolutely beautiful throws, like some absolute dimes. And I think it's just a lot of right pieces, right place, right time sort of thing all coming together. It's funny you mentioned the Chiefs there, because it was kind of a nice season generally, wasn't it? With the teams this year that were in the mix, like the Bears, they obviously they made the playoffs. I think they won their division. And and it's nice to see some different teams in the mix. Chiefs had a let's be blunt, a crap year. Like, it was really, really poor from their recent success, but it was nice to see. It was kind of nice to see, and that's not me bashing the Chiefs. It was just nice to see different teams in the mix.
I'll bash the Chiefs. I'll bash them all day long. I will bash them all day long. They were ass, and it showed. Like, it were nice because Mahomes he's a fraud. No, he's not really. He's really good, but it was just frustrating from a Patriots point of view watching someone take the dynasty to the dynasty lead. But I would agree. I would agree from there. Like, going as what Research College brought a nice little fact in here for us, gone from 11-0 in one score games in 2024 to 0-9. Now that's not an overnight turnaround. Like, it's kind of rare to see something happen. Now, does the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift media have something to do with it? Because he's a key part of that offense, and was the off-field life that he's living?
I don't think so, because, like, you heard it a lot. So this is year 2 of him being involved with Taylor, and you heard it in the first season. That, he's been distracted, blah, 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 blah. But then in the second season, leading up to it, it was, no, it's fully invested, it's full pre-season, blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know, like, ultimately, they're professional athletes, aren't they? They've been in relationships before. I think they're making a big song and dance about the fact that it's Taylor Swift. I think the year before, she had a massive tour that he was attending and cameoing and stuff like that. So I think there's elements to it, but I don't know. It's an interesting one to see what happens next year. Obviously, if my research is right, he's a free agent technically. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. He's not said he's retiring. I'd assume there'd have been a big song and dance about that. I think he's probably too arrogant to want to go out on a season like they had. I think that's probably the reason he didn't go out the season before, and hoped he could sort of run it back. Does
he retire a Chief?
I don't think so. I think he's got to, I think.
Yeah, because I think, like, when Gronkowski didn't, like, initially retire as a Patriot, I think he should have done. Obviously, I can see why he went, and he wouldn't have gone anywhere. I could, he went elsewhere as such, but I don't know. I agree. I think he does. I think he retires as a Chief. I think he's got nothing else to do.
I mean, he could do a Philip Rivers thing, couldn't he? And go to another team and then retire with the team he wanted to retire with, and then go back to that team again 3 years after. Like,
could you imagine?
That retiring a Chargers thing was just stupid, wasn't it? So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Kelce did something stupid like that. But
no. So you mentioned the Bears and you mentioned the Patriots in terms of surprising you how well they did this year. Who's ahead of their rebuild schedule then? Now we can kind of take the Patriots getting to the Super Bowl away because of the schedule. And the Bears had a tougher schedule. So let's just talk, like, to what we've seen so far. Who had that kind of impact this year? Who do you think's ahead of their rebuild as such?
It's a difficult one because, like, the Colts were a really weird team at the beginning of the season. And they shocked me at first. I was thinking, oh God, these are really showing something here. These are going to have a good go. They've got Danny Dimes and, a few nice pieces, and they started so strong. I think it was like a 7-1 start, and then even more so. I remember sat in our local pub that we spoke about a few times. I remember watching the Colts absolutely dismantle the Dolphins on the first Sunday. And I was like, oh, this is atrocious. We've been absolutely smashed to bits by the Colts. And then they had a real strong start to the season. I'm like, all right, okay, it makes me feel a little bit better, actually. We've been smashed by a team that's good. And then they took that, like, 7 straight losses, I think it was. But I think they've potentially got some promise for future seasons. I think the Bears, I know we spoke about them a fair bit. The Bears are the team that stand out to me as that being ahead of the curve. It's definitely there for them. They're the name. But I don't know. There wasn't many teams that jumped out to me this season of who'd gone through that big rebuild. I think if you look at teams that maybe overperformed expectations, you got the Panthers, who won their division, although they won it with a losing record. I think the top three teams in there were Panthers, Bucks, and Falcons, all on an 8-9 record.
Yeah.
So they're a bit mixed because they stand out because they were in the playoffs, but they were still a losing record. Obviously, the Bears was mentioned. The Broncos, I think, have kind of overachieved. I think, the Bo Nix in his second year, absolutely smashing it. But, and I only saw this the other day, Zach, and this'll make you happy a little bit.
Okay.
In terms of strength and schedule, so I've hammered Patriots for it the entire time we've been doing this podcast. It's in its infancy. But the second easiest strength of schedule was Denver Broncos. So I don't know if you knew that or not, but I only saw it the other day. So you got these two teams who were battling it out for the AFC and obviously had the easiest schedules. The Texans, however, had one of the tougher ones, if I remember rightly. Now, don't quote me on this. We said it's not going to be absolute balls to the wall analysis, but I'm sure the Texans had one of the harder strength of schedules, but actually still performed at a 12-5. And I think they've got so much potential to be really, really dominant next year. So if you're looking at those teams that maybe are ahead of schedule, I don't know if that's the right phrase for Houston, but I think they definitely exceeded expectations, and I think they've got the potential to maintain that next year as well.
I think my backing would be Houston on this, just before I go into it, but my backing would be Houston on this, and the reasons why, and I agree with everything you said about the other teams, and there's teams that I think the Colts are in serious trouble in the next 2 years because they've got a lot of players on contracts, and they're going to want paying. Taylor's going to be one of them that's going to take up a lot of their cap hit. If they don't pay him, they're losing a big chunk of their. Can they afford Taylor and a QB? Now that's a different story. I think the Colts are either going to go, if they don't play this correctly, they're going to be up creek without a paddle within the next 2 years, personally. For me, the Houston Texans, though, are one of the most dangerous teams within the next 2 years. Within the next 5 years, if they haven't won a Super Bowl, I'll show my ass, because they have one side of the ball they need to work on now. They have recruited so well, signed so well, drafted so well in that defensive front that they don't have to worry about that defense now for the foreseeable, and they can just worry about signing offensive players, really. Now, you look at other teams. Let's take the Patriots, for instance, who, yes, are above their quote-unquote schedule. Yes, they did really well this year, but they have areas on both sides of the ball that they need to work on going forward. Whereas, like, the Texans have one side of their ball kind of locked down, and it's quite an important side of the ball. Taking their schedule into talk, where they, quote-unquote, have one of the most, had one of the tougher schedules this year, and still finish 12-5 with that defense, just says, you know what, boys, I'm going to leave you all lot to do what you're doing, and I'm going to focus on this offensive side thing. Look at CJ Stroud. Is he the man that's going to take us to a Super Bowl? Probably not. Having a couple of years now, I don't think he is. I think he's a good QB, but I don't think he's elite QB. And then just looking around that offense and seeing where else they can kind of pick up the free agents, which we'll get into soon, see what's available, and go from there. So I think genuinely, Houston Texans could be a force to be reckoned with within the next 2 years minimum.
But do you think that the CJ not being elite, do you think that really matters? Like, I think I touched on it either last week or the week before, and if they've got an absolute solid defense, which they have, like, that's a really solid defense. Is Darnold elite? Like, I wouldn't say so. I thought he had an absolutely outstanding year, but I don't think he's elite. Is Drake May elite? No, not yet. He's got the potential. He's got the potential to be a real good quarterback, but did he show that he's elite so far? No. He showed he's a solid quarterback. He can run, but he did not look elite in the Super Bowl. CJ did look elite in year one. He looked brilliant, and there was so much hype about that. And I think it was just one of those seasons where he overachieved season one. So then season 2 and 3, he looked poor. But if he's solid, if he's enough, and his defense is elite, and he's got a few good pieces around him, like I think they could go all the way.
Yeah, maybe so. And I think if he just gets his head screwed on a bit more with this pressure, like obviously, the Patriots crumbled under pressure in the Super Bowl, but it's pot calling kettle black and all that. But I think CJ's big issue, especially in the postseason, was the pressure. I think the pressure got to him, and I just didn't think he'd made the right decisions that he should have done, that he'd been doing all year round. And like you say, he's not elite. Thinking back, Sam Darnold's not elite, but he absolutely dominated and he smashed it, and he did really well. I think it's what you have around you. And again, I think if he just matures up a little bit, again, that Houston Texans team is going to be something to be thinking. Now, teams that should be good and are good but crumble, are the Buffalo Bills really going to be a Super Bowl contender within the next 12 to 24 months or not? With the likes of the Texans kind of making that uprising, the Seahawks making that uprising. The Buffalo Bills were at one point the team to beat, and then they just couldn't get to the Super Bowl. And I feel like now there's a lot of teams catching them up in that regular season level and that postseason level, and that are just going to get there before them again. But are basically the Bills a Super Bowl contender?
I have this real annoyance with the Bills that, and I know you'll say it's biased, but your fandom is in the same division. I just always feel like the Bills are, and it sounds mad considering where they get. I feel like they're overrated, and I know that sounds crazy to say because they get the record they do, and they're always in the playoffs, and they're always up there in the playoffs. But I just can't see it. They never feel like that complete team. Even just this most recent season, and I'm going to my own fandom, Miami, took it to them, big style. Miami this season, really, really took it. And on the flip side, though, they also, the Bills, reached the playoffs and got to where they did. But I don't see them winning a Super Bowl. I don't see Josh Allen ever winning a Super Bowl. I think he has potential, but I don't think he is the player that he's always made out to be. I don't think he deserved MVP last year. I think he's a brilliant quarterback. Would I take him at the Dolphins? Yes, I would right now, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback, personally.
Ooh. I don't know about that one.
And I know that's bold, but I don't think he changes. No, I'm probably saying this wrong. He does change a team, but I don't think he is someone who could go walk into any other team and be that deciding factor. I think he's just so up and down. He can have those games where he's absolutely lights out and he is top 5 and he's top 2, top 1, But then he has them absolute stinker games where he is atrocious. And I know if we'll compare him to Brady, who's without a doubt the greatest of all time. If anyone wants to say he's not, they're mad until proven otherwise. But I never really remember him, and I'm sure there will be odd ones, but I never really remember him having those absolutely stinker games. He might have average games, but I can't ever remember him absolutely shitting the bed and basically losing his team the game. Whereas I have seen Josh Allen lose games for the Bills.
For me, Josh Allen's he's an established QB now. He's no longer the new guy. He's an established QB now, and I think the Bills for me are consistently above average in a polite way to the Bills. They're a good team, and if they if the Bills beat you, they beat you. But at the same time, they can be beaten. And you know, research Cal coming in here, clutch. They're the second worst rushing defense in the NFL, right? And teams picked up on that, and teams just ran against them, and they just didn't know how to stop it. Now, it's not all about Josh Allen; it's about the entire team. I get that, but at the same time, it's you kind of come as a collective, don't you? And I feel like it gets to week 5. And it's, the Bills are on form now. The Bills are going to be getting to the Super Bowl. The Bills this, the Bills that. And then they just crumble and they just start looking a bit more mediocre. And how many years do you get it of the Bills being the Bills? And, like, don't get me wrong, they're a good team and they're a good organisation. And you can only play what's in front of you. But that being said, do they keep bottling it? Like they bottle it when it comes to the bigger stage, and it gets to the latter end of the season when they need to put them points on the board. And I just don't think they do. I think they're a bit lacklustre at times. And now, in particular, they've had a bit of that coaching turnaround. I think I keep using this 2-year kind of where the team going to be in 2-year type thing, because I think 24 months in the NFL can be massive for a team. Look at the Bears, for instance. Where will they be in 2 years' time with this new coaching setup? Like, I don't know. I don't see it from there. But you mentioned the Miami Dolphins and putting it to the Bills. Your Fins this year, I'm not going to lie to you, did exactly what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were just a bit meh, but then they're like the opposite of the Bills. They're consistently below average, in my opinion, but when they're above, when they play well, they absolutely dominate. And I'm just putting that out. Like, when they win games good, but they were just a bit below average. What about your Fins? What will you view this year on your boys?
It's so hard, isn't it? As a fan, you never want to see your team end that way that they did, and like I'm openly I've been a Tua fan, but I think it's time for a change, and I think it's come at the right time. And I'm a Mike McDaniel fan. I think he's a great coach, or he's a great mind. Is he a head coach? You know what I mean? Look at Tua with Flo before, and he was just woeful because he had a coach who didn't believe in him. And then you bring Mike McDaniel in, and the impact they had. I mean, that 2023 season, I think it was absolutely unreal. You know, the Dolphins should have the record for the biggest victory against another team, and the only reason they didn't is because Mike McDaniel's a good guy and didn't put another couple of touchdowns on the Broncos. Like, he went for a field goal when he could have just, I think it was, what was it? Like, it was like a 3rd down or something, and he went for a field goal instead of like putting more points on them, basically. Something stupid like that. But it just hit a wall, I think. And I know this could never work in the NFL, but what would have been amazing is to see someone come in, like an established head coach, bring them in and keep Mike McDaniel as a offensive coordinator. Like, I'd have absolutely loved that. And I know that won't work, and I know why you'd never do that. It's a weird scenario to be in, but like, I don't know. This year it needed to happen. We had a strong finish, which was good to see. Strong for the quality of the team. And obviously we've, as we'll have been seeing, it's about the only NFL news there's been this week, really. We're starting to sell house and get rid and chop the dead wood, and the biggest name of them, obviously Chubb's been cut, which I'll be honest is frustrating, but also shows, not that he's been cut, but it shows the situation the Dolphins were dealing with last season. We had offers for Chubb before the trade deadline last year, and we could have shipped him off, but now we've cut him for absolutely nothing. So, take a 6th round or a 5th round or whatever it is you could get, take it, because the season was done. So why didn't you do that? It's so stupid. But we cut him. But the big name, obviously, is Tyreek, isn't it? Tyreek's gone. It was expected. Yeah. For him, it's going to be interesting to see what's next for Tyreek. I think it was almost a given that he wasn't going to be here this next season. And I think the rumour was he was going to be traded, and then obviously he did his knee, dislocated knee, multiple ligaments. He might not even be fit for the start of next season. It's that significant of an injury. He's in his early 30s now as a receiver, as a speedster. It's a knee injury. I think he's still going to be a good pickup for somebody. But it'd be interesting to see where he goes.
It strikes me like the DeAndre Hopkins, when he's in his prime and then just kind of slowed down a little bit, went to a team and just became. But I think Hill's got too much of a personality and too much of an ego to do this. Now, I've got a bit of not a sentimental value, but I don't know, a bit of a love-hate relationship with him at the moment, and I know players don't like this view when it comes down to it. But fantasy football, I traded for the guy the week of it happening. I traded for him the week of it happening. So I want him to come back. I want him to come back as a wide receiver one. I want him to absolutely dominate. But I just don't see it. But on the Chubb situation and you getting the offers, now hindsight's a wonderful thing, and at the time you didn't know where you were going to be. Mike McDaniel was your head coach. He was, he wasn't going to get fired at the end of the season when this was happening. I think you can take a positive from this, whereas yes, you could turn around and go, oh well, we could have got this for him, so we'll just keep him because he's a good player and people value him. No, he's not right for this team now, and the ownership and the leadership from the top are going, yeah, we had an offer for you. At the right time it went there. We're even going to try and get one now. Off you pop, we're releasing you. Like, they're going to be taking some sort of hit, right? They're going to be taking some sort of hit on his cap on his wages for that.
Yeah. Yeah, there will be.
I think it's some. Nope. I think it's a positive you could take from it. If you're looking for one somewhere, I do think there's a positive in there you could take from it. From an organisation point of view is what I'm trying to get at there.
I think they're doing the absolute right thing. Like, I'm really excited for next season. Well, no, I'm not excited for next season at all, actually. I'm excited for the season after, because it's going to be a rough all season, and what appears to be happening, and it's the Tua contract that's hanging over it now, and to see what they do with this. That's the jigsaw piece that's missing, that we need to see where it falls. But they are basically, from the look of it, saying we're going to take these cap hits now and basically be in a position to reset for 2027 and almost have a fresh cap to use. So they've got rid of the big contract. Well, they got rid of Reek, they've got rid of Chubb, a couple of other guys there as well, and not significantly as significant on the cap hits. But obviously, when the decision's made with Tua, and you see all sorts of reporting, and it's all a load of crap, because no one, people have sources, but who really knows what's going on? Because you're not going to deal all your cards, are you? There's rumours that they are trying to offload him as a trade, but to take some of the cap hit to sweeten the deal and things. And I think it'd be interesting if they do cut him. They've got some flexibility depending when they cut to. I think it's a post-June 1st cut, if I got that date right. They can split the contract across 2 years. Now, I think, if I'm honest, I'd just take the hit this year. Write 2026 off. Yeah. I know you can never publicly say that and do that as an organisation, but they've got a GM and a head coach who are in lockstep. And if the organisation's on board with it, Stephen Ross is pretty good for standing by guys. He doesn't fire easily, to be fair. They write 2026 off, take the full hit on Tua's contract. I know that might not be quite fully possible, and they might need to cut some other guys, and it's cracks. It's their jobs, it's their livelihood. But as an organisation, do that, and then 2027 you start and you hit fresh. And go for it then, all hog then. What we've been doing for so many years is just patching holes with vets, and you need that mix of rookies and vets, but the Packers have done it well. They've drafted really well.
Where do you pick this year? What? You're
just outside the top. We're just outside the top 10.
So realistically, you're not going to get a great QB in this draft anyway. So, like you said,
no, and I don't think there is one outside of Mendoza.
No. Do you keep hold of Tua for another year under a new head coach? See how you get on with it. I don't know.
Well, this is what I've been playing with in my head. I'm like, why do we cut him now? Because you could still keep him and just see what happens. But it's then the drama, isn't it? And it's the politics and it's all that sort of stuff. And so, like, I don't know, and this might just be my non-knowledgeable head here. Like, what benefit do we get out of cutting him and taking the full hit on his cap out of just keeping him? Other than the locker room side of stuff.
Yeah, you're paying the same. And I think if he sits down with Tua and goes, right, you've got one season to kind of show us what you're doing. I don't know. It's one of them. And I can see, obviously you said you guys have been struggling as such this year, and you've got that kind of off-season kind of locker room stuff to go with it. Who in your mind, just to kind of wrap up the team situation here, we might touch on more teams next week because there's a lot of teams to go through. There's a lot of talking to go through with it as well. But like, who in your head here is one kind of off-season away from being like there, if that makes sense? Not like Super Bowl. I'm not talking like Super Bowl, but like who's one off-season away from being that contender when it comes to the playoffs and pushing a bit for, like Denver were this year round, if that makes sense. They had that one off season to make them to get to where they were.
I think there's the team that's always sort of there on the cusp, and they've got to get there somewhere because they're arguably one of the most consistent teams in the league, and it's the 49ers for me. They have some unlucky stuff. They have some unlucky like injury situations, don't they, over the years? And they've got Shanahan, he's the coach who's like, it's just been out of reach, that Super Bowl. It's just been out of reach in getting it, but he's arguably one of the best coaches in the league. He's got his own tree, but he doesn't have the Super Bowls, unless I'm completely mistaken there. But it's the Niners just, and I couldn't even sit here and tell you what they need, because they seem there, but they could just, it could be the given year and they make it and they do it and they get over that hump and they bring it in. I have my own thoughts on Purdy. I think Purdy's overrated. I think he's fine. I think he's a solid starting quarterback, but I think he's definitely middle of the pack. I think he was hyped up something chronic because of the success he had as Mr. Irrelevant. Like, absolutely deserves the credit, but I don't think he's this top tier quarterback at all. And I think you hear the media starting to come round to that same narrative now. Not saying that I'm an oracle or anything, but you know, and you know what worries me actually is someone like Tua going to the 49ers, and you have someone like Shanahan with getting his hands on him and winning the Super Bowl. It'd be like a Sam Darnold Jets fan sort of scenario. Yeah. Right, but I could see it though, honestly, when there's been talks of him either being cut or traded over this last year or so. That's the one. I always think, God, if he goes to the Niners, and I just feel like someone like him with Shanahan and the offense they've got, and the D's solid. Like, I just think, I think they're so close. They're so close, but they're almost like the Bills of the NFC. Like, they're so close and they're constantly there, but just not quite getting over that hurdle.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. I've got the Raiders for me. I think are an off season or two. This off season, it could go one or two ways. I know that sounds kind of like cliche with it, but let's say they get Mendoza, which they're going to do, right? And he's starting QB and he's as good as what it looked like he's in college. They've got Genty background. If they can kind of bring in some decent free agents, because they've got a desirable location now, like, you know, got new coaching staff coming in. They've got the exciting QB looking like he's going to come in. They've already got some established players there. Can they build on that? Can they go from that? But on the flip side to it is sometimes too much change is not a good thing for a team. But I think the Raiders aren't too far away from it, to be fair. I think this year was a lot of poor coaching. And I think it wasn't the right scheme and the right style of football for what that Raiders personality and Raiders players are, to be fair to you.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think I'd say they're probably more than a season away. I think they've got a few pieces they need to do, and I think, it's kind of going to be like the Bears. I think they've got the potential. I don't think they're quite going to reach the potential where the Bears did, but I think they've got that potential to make a big shift overnight. But then I think year 2, when they've got a second-year quarterbacks, we know how difficult the league is, and a rookie quarterback, it's very rare they have super success. But I think 2 years with Mendoza, be 3 years with Jonte. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Max Crosby, and a coach who's had a year and then another year after that to push it. I think year 2 of the Kubiak experiment, for better words, would be the point for Raiders for me, more so than next year. But I think they've definitely got all the potential in the world to make a leap next year.
That's it. And looking now, again, guys, if you are listening to this without the visuals up, if you are safe to do so, you want to watch the visuals, we're on screen now. We have a list of the notable free agents going into the 2026 season. Now, the teams that could kind of look up at who they're going to be potentially picking up. Some really big names on there, that especially if they don't get their the tags anyway or re-sign. For instance, Trey Hendrickson being one of them. He could be an absolute storm. I think he leaves and goes somewhere else just because the Bengals aren't going to get back to the Super Bowl anytime soon. Looking how they're looking, and they'll want that success. But there is some definite notable names on this list. Any that strike out to you and where their landing spots could be?
Yeah, I think there's a few that obviously George Pickens is a big name. Be interested to see what happens there. I thought he had a solid year at Dallas. They could quite easily re-sign him. Malik Willis is one that stands out to me just as a Dolphins fan. There's a lot of talk about him coming to the Dolphins. He had some solid time on the field at the Packers, and obviously we've got a lot of Packers that have come our way, so I could see that happening as well. Obviously, the biggest name on there probably has to be Kenneth Walker. Obviously, Super Bowl MVP. He's now a free agent, and the reporting I've seen today is that he's not going to be franchise tagged. So that'll be a really interesting one to see what happens there. Like, how often is it that you get a Super Bowl MVP, then hit the free agency market the very next week? It's a month, isn't it? Technically, it's March, so they're officially free agents. But obviously, one not on that list is Tyreek Hill. I think he's probably one of the more interesting stories. But you've got a few good running backs hitting free agency this year.
Breece Hall for me.
Yeah.
He's exciting. I think his mindset's always been, I'm at the Jets. So, I think put him in a decent team or a good team or, a good organisation, should I say. I think he could be genuinely a really, really good running back, and putting him with that team where they need, not that powerhouse, but that speed as a running back, is that, in particular good. Kenneth Walker, again, like you said, is a name that I'm surprised I'm seeing on there. Etienne as well. Travis Etienne from the Jags, the running back there. For me, there's 3 decent, potentially team-breaking running backs if they're in the right scheme. And I think it's going to be an exciting one. You've got Mike Evans on there as well, Buccaneers wide receiver, who's up until this year, how many 1,000-yard seasons did he have on the bounce up until this year before having a bit of an injury which made him so he can't do it anymore. But it's just I think it's just gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exciting to see.
I think Mike Evans could be a really interesting signing for one of those teams that's almost there and just needs it. It's like the DeAndre Hopkins signing that referred to him earlier, I think, and it's that type of big body, big name could be Patriots, the difference maker on an offense.
Yeah, the Patriots need someone like Mike Evans. He's a veteran. He's a veteran that can still do it. Maybe not to the level that he could do prior to his injury or a couple of years ago, and he's not going to be at the level of CeeDee Lamb, for instance, nowhere near that level. But he's experienced, so he can help the locker room. He's tall, he's big, he can throw it up in the air, he can catch the ball. The Patriots receivers are small, they're nimble, they're fast. we need someone else like him on that outside. That him and Diggs together, Jesus, that'd be so good to see. As we've got a slot and a wide out together, would be really nice to see. But it's where does he go? And yeah, but like I said, there's some big names on there, some big names on there for me. So yeah, let's move on, shall we? We've had a bit of a chat about the teams. We've had a bit of a chat about the players so far for this year. I think it's time to move on to all the balls. What do you reckon, mate?
Let's do it.
Right. All other balls is here. Brad, do you just want to tell the people what all the balls is?
I shall. So, all of the balls is the segment where we discuss other sports from around the globe. The irony this week is that we're actually going to discuss the exact same sports that we discussed last week.
Yeah, we are.
You know, there's some significant happenings in the world of sports at the minute in terms of the Winter Olympics are happening. I'm a little bit low-key obsessed with them at the minute for various reasons that we won't discuss. Researcher Cal is nodding his head in the background there. But also, obviously, it was the start this year of the Rugby League season following on from the Challenge Cup that was discussed last week. So we'll touch on that as well. But, Zach, shall we get into the wonderful, wonderful Winter Olympics?
Yes, the wonderful Winter Olympics are finally here. And Team GB, this is why you're so excited, isn't it, Brad? Because Team GB have finally got gold medals.
That's right.
That's the sole reason that we finally got gold medals. Individual skeleton, mixed skeleton, and the team snowboard cross taking gold across, all three of them. Now, I saw something online, and I don't know if this is true or not, so I could be talking absolute balls right now, but there's not actually a skeleton track made of ice in the UK that people can run tests on. It's made of concrete and I believe it's in like Lee or somewhere. Again, could be chatting major balls there, but the closest ones are abroad somewhere. And Research Cal's coming in and saving me clutch here. They only practice 2 to 3 hours a year on ice, and they've gone and bloody won a gold. Credit where credit's due.
2 golds.
2 golds. Like, that is... Like, I admittedly, I haven't watched as much of the Olympics as I would have liked. Normally, I prefer the Winter Olympics to the normal, like, Summer Olympics. I do. There's just something about it I really like. But just this year, my schedule just hasn't aligned where I've watched a lot of it. I've just been trying to keep up where I can go from there. So, I'm a bit behind on it. But when I saw that we got some golds, it's good to see. It's good to see. I'm guessing you've been watching it though.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's great. Like I saw Matt Weston. I'm pretty sure he was our first gold in the individual skeleton. And I saw that. I didn't watch it live, but I saw it that evening. And it was just one of those runs where, I mean, I know nothing about the skeleton. Like, I know nothing. I'm also like slightly confused by once you've done your run and you're on the, whatever they call it, the sled, whatever. Like, what do you actually do after that point? Now, I'm sure there is some stuff like weight distribution and all that malarkey, but you just saw from the get-go the way he ran, the way he got on it, and he was just like, it was just, you just looked at it and you're like, this is good. This is a solid performance, and like he took gold. He's a former taekwondo athlete. He's a former rugby union player. And he took gold from Germany by making up a 0.3 second gap. Researcher Carl's telling us, so if that's wrong, blame him. It's just absolutely insane, and the performance was unreal. But then he's doubled it himself by going, you know what? I'll go on this mixed gender one, and I'll take gold again. On the mixed skeleton,
wild, isn't
like, unreal. Yeah, unreal.
There's some sports in the Olympics, whether it's summer or winter, I look and I just think, how on earth did this become a sport? But it's so exciting to see. And like you say, when they're on the sled going down, obviously it's weight distribution, the I mean, like, I don't want to insult people because it must be a really hard sport to take part in, but once you're going down, aren't you? And it's really fast. I think it's all about the aerodynamics and your start and everything. But, credit where credit's due. Puts Team GB up to 13th now, with the 3 golds. No bronzes, no silvers yet, but 3 golds. And I believe as well we've come 4th like quite a few times as well. We've just been on that borderline of getting them medals. So credit where credit's due. We're at that point now. 13th on there. Norway still out in front with 14 medals in total, 14 golds in total. And 31 medals, so they're going to take some catching up. But just as from a Winter Olympics side of things, from a GB side, getting medals is a big thing because we don't have that access to that real kind of environment, let's say.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, isn't it? And I was looking at something earlier that the way the medal chart works in the Olympics, which I want to actually have a discussion with you about in a second, but we're in 13th place, but we've only got 3 medals total, and all 3 of those are gold. So like you say, we've had a few 4th places which has been gutting to miss out on the medals. We've got no bronze, no silver, 3 golds. Obviously Matt taking 2 of those, so obviously nailing his solo run and then making up that gap from Tabby's run to take that gold for the mixed. But then you've got Charlotte Banks and Hugh Nightingale, who took, if I'm right, I'm sure I saw this from Callum earlier, is the first gold medal for GB on snow, which is like mega. All the better that it's snowboarding, love it. But for the fact that we as a country don't have those facilities, like if you look at the top end of that chart, you got Norway, you got Italy, you got the US. All 3 of those obviously have access to that quite easily. Yep. Netherlands and Germany, not so much, but right next door they do, with Austria in 6th. France, Sweden, Switzerland, all of those top sort of 7, 8, 9 teams have all got access. And we're just then on the outside of that, along with Australia, really. Australia do have snowy mountains, to be fair, but just outside that, without the facilities. So to be there, to be competing at that level, like imagine running on concrete in the skeleton, to then go, what, we'll do it on ice this time, and we'll just smash a gold out. Oh, you know what? I'll do it with my mate again, just for laughs. It's just,
it is.
It's bizarre.
It is wild. Yeah, it is wild to think, and it goes to show, doesn't it, like that anything can happen when it comes down to it, and put your mind and soul to it. And I think it's that is it perception style of things, when they're training on the concrete or whatever kind of sled it is or slope it is that they're training on actually before they go onto the ice. It's the visualizing the ice, so then when you come onto the ice, it's not that much of a shock to... obviously these guys will have done it before, so they kind of know what it's like, but they'll know what the differences are and the tweaks that they need to make. But to go and practice like 2 to 3 hours a year, on ice, to then go smash out a gold is phenomenal. Like, that is textbook. We're coming here to do a job, and we're believing in ourselves. Like, we're absolutely believing in ourselves for us to go out there and do it. And it's that belief that can go and help you out on that. Do you see us getting any more medals?
And I think it's so hard to tell. Like, it's unbelievably difficult to get a gold. Like,
yeah.
And I know that's obvious to say, isn't it? But those 4th place, we've been so close to a good few bronzes. And I just don't think, I don't know, I think we'll struggle. I can't see us continuing to push. That skeleton was like a, oh my God moment. And then the snowboarding obviously wasn't necessarily expected as far as I'm aware. I love watching the Winter Olympics. I don't pretend, I can't even speak. I don't pretend to be like fully in tune and invested in all the lead up to it. But I think when you're competing with those nations that have got access to the facilities that they do, then you're always going to struggle to a point, aren't you? Like, we're definitely more of a 100%. Summer Olympics nation, but I think it's been good. It's been definitely interesting.
100%.
I know Callum was digging up some interesting facts earlier today, wasn't he? Dirty little dog picking up on the facts that the Olympic villagers ran out of condoms in 3 days.
Oh, really? I wonder if I found that out.
Yeah, Callum was he was very invested in that story, was Callum, researcher Cal. So, but I mean, I get it. You know, you've got to think like these are top athletes who are like building up all this testosterone and, you know, you hear about stuff, don't you, in all sports about not doing things before the big game and stuff like that. So, you know, how long have they not been doing things? And then you're in this village with, you know, bang average looking men and women, and it's
yeah.
You know,
so
it's one of those.
With us talking Olympics now, I'm just going to reorder something a little bit here, Brad, if you don't mind. We're gonna just put the next all the balls story on hold for a second, because research Carl has actually made us a little bit of a game, let's just say. So we have the feature that we've ran before, you know, the stats that sound fake, where research Carl put 3 stats out that all sound fake and one of them is real. Well, research Carl this week has done something a little bit different for us based around the Olympics. So we're going to do sports that sound fake. Now, these are Winter Olympic sports, or sport, right? There's 3 sports on the screen, and I'm going to read them out in just a second. And we have to guess which is the real, or was the real, Winter Olympic sport. So guess the real Winter Olympic sport, and the 3 options are dog sledding, snowball fighting, and reindeer racing. So this was, as far as I'm aware, research Carl can correct me if I'm wrong here, this was an Olympic sport, no longer an Olympic sport. I don't know when it stopped, but one of these 3 was an Olympic sport. There's one obvious one to me, and I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing you're thinking dog sledding.
Yes, and I don't think it's that.
You think of the Huskies and mushing and all that malarkey, but like I just can't fathom out. A snowball fight sounds just ridiculous. Like, unless you're like adjudicating it like dodgeball or something.
That's it.
Like, reindeer racing is just stupid. That's not.
But so for me, reindeer racing could be like chariot racing. You know, they had that chariot racing is big in France, right? Where they'll be sat on like the little cart thing on back at horses, right?
In France.
Yeah, it's big in France, is chariot racing. Like, it's like, you know, like speedway circuits in the UK on the motorbikes, just like the ovals. Chariot racing is big in France, where they just sit on it's like horse racing.
Not Greece.
No, in France. Like, I don't condone gambling, but when I've had when I've been looking on Sky Bet for something to do, when I've got like 3 pence in my
get on this, please. Please get on this. This sounds ludicrous.
Yeah, it is. Chariot racing is big in France, right? Anyway,
round the Arc de Triomphe on the roundabout in Paris?
It's usually on like an all-weather, like a sandy kind of thing. And they can't sprint either. They can't gallop. Chariot racing in France is prominently features a high octane live. He's just put a little Google there for us, but so it's relatively big.
I would
have
just thought like Greece or like Italy, like Rome and stuff like that. Like, oh my, that sounds stupid. But that's what for me. What could have been like the reindeer racing side of things. But I actually think the dodgeball. You nailed it on the head there for me. Snowball fighting dodgeball could be the one, you know. I think I'm just gonna go with the obvious, because why wouldn't it be dog sledding? Like, it's got to be dog sledding. Cal, can you just start typing that answer in the
So
chat?
You're going dog sledding. I'm going snowball fighting. Researcher Cal, what is the answer? And the answer is, just he's typing. It's a long one.
Great for an audio listener here, Cal. The answer would be great.
Yeah. It is dog sledding. It was in the 1932 games. I thought it was just too obvious. But hey, look, well done. So the real Olympic sport there was the dog sledding. So happy days. So there we go. we'll keep you up to date with the Olympics as and when we can do, when we're around. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll try and watch some more so I can sound a bit more knowledgeable when it comes down to it. But we'll keep you updated without that. Now moving on to story number 2, which is our All the Balls number 2. But I want to throw a bit of a suggestion. Because the season started again and we're going to be talking rugby league a little bit more because we're both fans of it, I think we make it its own little section. And I think for those that know, I think we can't speak. I think the rugby league section. The rugby league section is here, and for sports fans in the UK, especially the north of England, rugby league is in us blood. If you don't know what rugby league is and you've never seen it, I beg you go watch it because it's a phenomenal, absolutely great sport. We spoke about it last week, but this weekend just gone, kicked off the season, and let me tell you now, there was some shocking results, and by shocking, I mean good shocking results this weekend when it came down to the scores. And the big one for me was the York Hull KR score, the drop goal to win it. Paul McShane getting man at match. Are we back in like 2021 or whatever it was? Like when we were at Cass, like wow. What a game that was. Admittedly, I turned it off when it was like, 16-6 or something with 20 minutes to go. And I was like, okay, I've won this. I'll wang it off at time being. And then I looked and I opened my flash scores up on my phone and it was 18 all. And I'm like, nah. So I run back and I turned it back on TV. What an ending. What a game as well.
It was, it was brilliant. Like, I think it's interesting because obviously Paul McShane was at Castleford for a good while, so listeners and people who know us will know we're Castleford fans. But do you think when he went to York he ever thought he'd be then playing in Super League again, and then he's in Super League winning the game, man of the match against the Super League champions Hull KR, who were about to play in Las Vegas in the World Club Challenge game. And I thought, I just thought the weekend as a whole was actually like a really good public sort of like showing of what rugby league is. So we've spoke about it last week about how much of an electric sport it can be, but when you look at the scores, there's no game that was more than, I think, 16 points difference, I think was the biggest difference. I'm just looking.
Yeah.
And that was between Catalans and Huddersfield, who Huddersfield were down in the doldrums last year outside of Salford. But you had some really competitive games, like York beating Hull KR was huge. Probably, obviously, the hugest story of the weekend. But not only that, you also had Toulouse, who are new in the league, beating Wakefield. And you didn't have Bradford getting the victory, but they did come close. There was 7 points in it, which, for the fact that there's 7 points, shows that Hull FC felt concerned about it. So if you don't know rugby league, it's all even numbers basically. It's 4 points or 2 points for whatever your tries and your kicks. It's a drop goal that's 1 point. So if you've got an odd number in there, someone's put a drop goal over for some strange reason because they were worried. And 3 brand new teams into Super League, 2 of the 3 winning, the other team coming close to giving them a game, getting that victory. I think it's just a really good showing for rugby league and what the sport is. It's really exciting.
I think it was best it could have been in terms of like exciting games, and the scores themselves were all quite close. And I mean, the biggest shock for me was the Warrington St Helens score being 24-14. The difference in that more than anything else. I thought that would be more of a tighter game, more of a 14-all kind of game, well maybe 15-14 with the drop goal. Now I went to the Cass game at the weekend. I was lucky enough to go and I watched the game live as such, and it were a 26-16 game from a spectator watching. Now, obviously I'm a biased Cass fan and I always will be, and I believe black and amber, but they played that first half, they played unreal. It felt like we had so many defensive stops within our own half, within our own quarter at one point, and we did the typical Cass thing, and we just bet ourselves at one point. We were just doing stupid mistakes that gave the Wigan the ball back, and there's only so many times in rugby league, when I was predominantly an American football podcast, but in rugby league, you don't have an offense and a defense that come on off the field. You have one team that's on the field, and when you're defending against some of these units that are the forwards, for instance, that are just running that ball, it takes it out of you. So then your offensive drives and your attacking sets, you got no gas in the tank to have these exciting plays. So it was just one-dimensional. Oh, here's the ball. We'll run it forward, inside ball, and we just couldn't get anything going. But I saw a lot of promise in that game. I really did. I saw a lot of promise in that game.
You had a brand new team, literally a brand new team. Almost the entire starting lineup, was brand new. There's a few players in there that have been with us before, but all of them together playing was a really promising first start. I think it was over 10 minutes they defended their 20 and 10 metre line. And they were outstanding in that first half, and it shows organisation. I'm really excited as a Cast fan for this season. Ryan Carr looks a solid coach. Like, you've seen a lot of the media stuff, he looks solid. And to go against Wigan, who are a top 1, 2, 3 team year on year, and a big team, a hard-hitting team, they did themselves proud. Last year, that would have been a 60-plus something score.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, mate. I mean, we lost, which is not great, but we also took a major, major loss in terms of a player personnel on that day as well. Blake Taffy, I believe his surname is pronounced, or Taff, as it has been pronounced by the compare, or the announcer, should I say, took a ACL injury, which puts him out for the rest of the year. Now, I was there. I watched the game live, and me and Brad were speaking prior to the podcast starting, and I didn't even see it happen live. And the guy continued to play throughout the rest of the game, saw it off, but now being ruled out for the rest of the season with an ACL tear. And he's one of our new recruits, one of our more exciting new recruits as well. A little bit gutted on that, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a bit of a kick in teeth, isn't it, really, from a Cast point of view?
It's a big loss. I was texting another friend who wasn't at the game, so we were texting quite a bit watching it on TV, and I was saying, our 167 spine looks really solid. Say it was the first time the three of them have played together. So it's your full-back, your half-back, and your scrum half. So they're basically the guys, for those that don't follow sport, that control the team really and dictate. As a threesome, they're almost like the quarterback of the team. They dictate what's happening. They link up and they set the plays up and stuff like that. Obviously, your fullback controls the defensive side of things. And I thought they looked really, really promising for the first game. I was really excited, and now a third of that spine's gone. So it'd be interesting to see what happens here. There's other players to come through, but
I think Rooney will step up and take that slot and hopefully progress there, but only time will tell. And like I say, going forward, I think we're going to focus a little bit more on the rugby league side of things week in, week out. Like, probably not as in depth as what we do with the NFL, but you guys let us know what you want to hear as well, by the way. We're getting into the off-season with the NFL now. What do you want to hear when it comes down to the pods themselves? Is there anything in particular you want us to give really average takes on? Let us know in the comments below, please. Feel free to do so. But yeah, that's a little touch upon the opening weekend for the rugby league, and I must admit, I'm excited for this week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all full of games, so I'm excited to go from there. Now, Brad, before we wrap up, we have our most consistent feature on the pod, and that is a Carl's Conundrum. Okay, so Carl's Conundrum last week was a tough one, and I've got a little bone to pick because this slide that is now appearing on the screen is different to the one that I read out last week. Let's see if we can spot the difference here. Which four players are tied? I'll repeat that. Which four players are tied?
How many?
For the most sacks? Which four players are tied for the most sacks in a single Super Bowl game? Now, if I'm correct, the question wasn't which four players, Brad. It wasn't, was it, Mr. Researcher Carl?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
dear, oh dear.
He decided to tell us after we've done the
again.
pod. Again, this is the third week on the bounce. We're going to start calling him Apprentice Cal, I think. He's going to be called Apprentice Cal. Jeez. Killing us, Cal. You're killing us. Anyway, which 4 players are tied for the most sacks in a Super Bowl season? In a Super Bowl, single Super Bowl. And it was Reggie White, Darnell Dockett, Coney Ely, and Grady Jarrett. So if you got them, well done. If you took part, thank you very much. And we're going to get into the next week's Cal's Conundrum, and please feel free to take part in this. You can take part by heading over to any of our socials at ABNFpod, wherever you go on your social media. I got it right this time. And as well, if you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify with the video, you can also comment there and let us know what you think. Right, Cal's Conundrum for next week. In terms of average value, which NFL player signed the biggest free agent contract in NFL history? So in terms of average annual value, which NFL player signed the biggest free agent contract in the NFL history? I feel like I butchered that reading that out. I ain't got a clue.
Yeah, you did, mate, but it's all good.
Yeah. Just a lot of words there. So anyway, guys, feel free to take part in that. Let us know what you think with it, and that would be fantastic to do so. Wow, it's been a long one, I'm not going to lie. If you're still here, thank you, by the way. Thank you. We're going to wrap up now. So if you're listening, go watch it. If you're watching, go listen as well. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, like, subscribe, follow, comment, share, tell your friends, and get involved. Brad, anything from you?
No, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the off-season. It'll be an interesting one. We've got some exciting things planned, so stick around and thank you as ever for tuning in, and let us know what you think.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good night. God bless, and we'll see you later.